Yesterday afternoon, I decided I wanted to take a bit of a deep dive into one of my favorite directors, Christopher Nolan's earlier works. I decided to tackle his first two feature films, Following and Memento, and see what I can learn from them, see what I can share with you guys and teach you kind of what I gathered from the movies, and also just talk about lower budget and early 2000s filmmaking in general. Thankfully, this was my first time watching both of these movies, so all of it was brand new to me, which I really like going headfirst, completely blind into movies. I had an idea about Memento because I saw some video essays about it before, but Following was completely no information, just dove right in. And I figured for brevity's sake, I would just pick three main themes that I think each of these movies conveyed really well that you can use towards your own filmmaking. I'm definitely going to use these ideas and strategies, especially considering there's a good chance, like myself, you also deal with low budget filmmaking. So here's three very important things that I got from watching Christopher Nolan's first two feature films. Keep it simple, stupid. Yes, I know you've probably heard that a billion times before, as have I, but I think these movies really point that out and highlight that ideology very well. There's no dolly zooms, there's no insane crane work, there's no snorri cam, there's no crazy technical things with the filmmaking itself. Most of the lighting in both of these films is fairly simple as well, not too far off from what we're looking at here in my room. And I think that's very important to do in early filmmaking. Yes, of course, it's always fun to do the crazy shot that takes 50 takes. But when it comes to working for budget projects, especially when you have a lot of people on set working for free or cheap, you do need to respect their time. So doing more simple shots that more focus on the narrative or the story pushing actions are definitely more important than going for the crazy stuff. Not to say that there's not a place for a dolly zoom or a fancy jib type camera angle, but they're definitely less important than the story itself and what you're trying to tell. Which directly brings me to my second argument on these two movies and what they taught me. It's all and always about the story. Both of these movies are like a mystery drama, not whodunit, but kind of in that realm of movies where you are trying to learn what's going on while the main character is at the same time. Like, there's not a lot of exposition in the movies. You kind of see things at the same time as the characters do, or at least it's revealed to you at a same pacing that they would have learned it. And both of these stories are phenomenal. Without spoiling anything of these two movies, because I think they're very important for people to watch, and also they're excellent on their first watch. Following is about a guy that just likes to follow people around in his free time, just kind of see what people's lives are like. He ends up following one person for way too long and it gets him in trouble. Pretty simple. Same with Memento. It's a guy who used to be an insurance inspector and he's trying to hunt down the guy that did terrible things to his wife, but he has a memory condition similar to amnesia, but basically every day he wakes up not remembering anything except from before his own injury and accident, and he's unable to make new memories. So he writes stuff down all the time. He takes pictures, mementos, and the whole time that he's trying to figure out what his story is, what his goals are, what he knows so far, we're learning it at the same time. Both of these movies, you can tell they're not very expensive productions, but they focus heavily on the story to make sure that you're enjoying the viewing experience. I can't think of any specific scenes in either movie where I was blown away by the cinematography, but the entire time I was just locked in on the story, which is an excellent thing to do, especially with budget. At my level of filmmaking, I can't get the Arri Alexa Mini, I can't get the Sony Burano, I don't have $3,000 cinema lenses to shoot stuff with. So to make do with the best of what you have, you focus on the story. Every good movie starts with a good story. If you don't have that baseline figured out and sorted before you start shooting, or maybe you're more run and gun and that's kind of your style, which is fine, but make sure that story is solid, because even the best visuals can completely fall apart if the story sucks. I'm looking at you, Marvel. I have a bone to pick with you and we'll talk about that in another video. Long story short, plot is everything. Get that figured out first and make sure it's perfect. The last thing these movies taught me, which I will definitely take dearly to my heart, is that you don't need to spoon feed the audience. And what I mean by that is, similar to the last point that I mentioned, the story is slowly revealed over time in both of these movies, and the viewer and the main character don't really have all the pieces figured out. There's also a lot of timeline jumping. There's the very first sequence in Memento, for example, is actually the end of the story and it's reverse. So most of that movie, when you're watching it play out backwards, which is a different take on the like mystery genre, I think, which is great because you have the end solution and you're trying to figure out how in the world you got there. Or for Following, for example, where we see the young man who likes to follow people around and we learn his hobbies and everything, but even ourselves don't find out what's really going on in the major plot until he figures it out. There's a lot of movies that don't really respect subtle exposition, and they kind of have two plot lines going at the same time, where you'll see what the main character thinks is happening and what's actually happening, and then the main character finds out, but you already knew, so it's not that shocking. Like, oh cool, we get to see their reaction to it. But I think if you expose it to the audience at the same time you expose it to the main characters, the realization of what's actually going on in the plot hits so much harder. And in Memento, it's not explained that you're watching it in reverse. You kind of just catch on along the way when you realize, like, wait, I've seen this happen already. Oh, this is how we got here. So point number 3 that I'm taking from these movies: don't spoon feed your audience. Make sure you give them information as it's needed. And of course, red herrings are totally fine, especially if you're in that mystery genre or that crime thriller. Make sure that when information is needed for the plot to further on, you've at least introduced it already. If not, you're introducing it now. But the idea of a lot of movies that we see nowadays, and even older movies, let's not discriminate here, where you are given the entire story, the entire mystery on a silver platter, the main elements of the plot, and the main character doesn't know it yet. When they find out, you're just like, oh cool, they're up to speed now. So exposition, let's keep it subtle, guys. And that goes with dialogue too. There's so many times where characters will say exactly what's going on in the story, as if the audience isn't seeing it happen as well, or as if someone else hasn't pointed it out. But that's more along the lines of writing and dialogue stuff, which I won't get into. I'm not a writer. I might write a short film or two for myself to shoot, but you will not catch me writing screenplays to hand out to other people. So not a writer, disclaimer there. But when I am writing stuff, I'm making sure that you are explaining the plot in a reasonable pace and that the audience is also rewarded at the same time as the main characters or other characters in the plot. So yeah, those are my takeaways from Following and Memento, Christopher Nolan's first 2 feature films. I absolutely need you to check them out. They're phenomenal movies. They're timeless even. Mind you, they're only about 25 years old, but still they hold up today. And I should point out that Following visually doesn't look that great. You can tell it was shot in a budget, but I still couldn't stop watching it because the plot was so good. Do you see what I'm saying? Please go watch both of these movies whenever you get the chance. If you don't like them, you can tell me about it. I'm gonna think you're wrong, but you can tell me. And thank you for watching the video. I hope you got some takeaways from this review of these movies, from this summary of the key takeaways that I got from it. And I wish all of you the best on your respective filmmaking journeys as well. Thanks for watching. See ya. Seriously, if you don't like those movies, you're a rat. A goblin. SMH.